All right. Looks like everything's live and working. Cool. So, we're doing no green screen today, and you can kind of tell my lighting is really weird today. I don't know why, but I'm getting a lot of light that I wasn't expecting. And then my green screen wasn't working right, and I was messing with it, and after like 5 minutes I decided, screw it, no green screen today. Alright, so a lot has changed on the project since I last streamed. In that yesterday off stream I reworked how all the graphics and UI worked, and updated a whole bunch of sprites and did a whole bunch of stuff there. So functionality-wise, it's pretty much the same, but outside of functionality, it looks way better than it used to. So I guess we'll do a very quick run through just to kind of show off what was going on there. There was a few other sort of reworky back-end things that I started doing yesterday but didn't finish. However, they're really not important. It's just like organization of code and stuff. So I'm gonna do that off stream some other time. The focus of today is to add new skills. So as you can see, quite a bit looks different. I changed some of the icons a bit, moved some text around, cleaned some stuff up, updated a lot of the sprites, including the sprite of the main character and the enemies. So it looks very, very different. I also changed how skills work slightly. This isn't really that much of a functionality change. Basically, skills work when you release the button now rather than when you click. I can refine that further if I want to. The reason for this is for stuff that has a range, which I don't have any skills that have range, so let me generate one that does. Actually, Meteor's a perfect example. So, if I use Meteor, which would now be 3, if I hold down the button, the fact that the crosshairs got bigger there, that's to show where I'm targeting the ability. And if I get outside of range, it disjoints from my aimer to show that's as far as the meteor will go. Right? So so the smaller cursor, as per usual, right? This cursor is where I'm aiming. Like, where I'm exactly aiming. But if I hold down the ability, it'll show where it'll actually cast. Now, I didn't quite finish this in that it doesn't work for if any of the skills have an increased cast range mod rolled. I didn't put in the functionality for that. So, I'll have to mess with that later. So I believe the meteor can go past this, because I think this one rolled extra cast. Yes. So if we check our skills, yeah, this is further cast range. But if I use one that doesn't have that, let's see if I can roll a ranged ability that doesn't have cast range. Can I stop rolling good meteors? Holy crap. Okay, cool. So this will show that it... Oh, I don't have enough mana to cast it. Yeah, it'll only go to there. So it's just a little bit of QOL that actually looks sweet and changes a fair bit. As far as, like, it's much clearer where we're gonna hit and why and all that stuff. I do also need to add in a check for if you have the mana. Here we go. This is right down. How is their cost off? Is it this side? Ah, this side. Check 4 mana on targeting. 4 mana on targeting. But the basic functionality is there. Adding that other stuff isn't crazy complicated or anything. It's just a few more steps that I just didn't get to yesterday. And again, that's not what I'm going to work on today. Oh, and I did update the enemy sprites, which are worth showing off, so now you can tell which direction they're facing. So it's a little bit clearer what's going on with them there. Ultimately, art direction-wise, I don't want the game to end up being top-down. Like, this is. It was just easier to do the placeholder sprites that way. I do want to do it the, like, isometric, you can see there what, kind of sideways-esque. But just for sake of temporary sprites, it was so much easier to make them pop down. But yeah. Yeah. So, on that, let's start putting in the new skills. So the goal today, actually, which I've said but I haven't shown, is to put some more skills in, and with that, rework the character select and the starting classes to actually fit the new way I want to do it. So, let's start putting in some new stuff. Let's start, and actually I got my spreadsheet over here on this monitor. I could do a whole bunch of random abilities, but I kind of like the idea of doing them kind of in sets, like what I've been doing, to sort of have like a whole playstyle kind of rounded out. So I want to probably start with the cold abilities, the cold spells today. And that would be Starbolt, Comet, and I kind of want to figure out how to do Shatter as an ability. And then we'll kind of move on from there. So, let's see. So an important base for Starbolt is going to be to make it kind of like Fireball. The main difference between the two, other than damage type, is I want Fireball to, if it rolls AoE, when it hits, it blows up. And I want it to be a bit of a slower meteor projectile. So, you cast it slower, but it hits harder, and when it AoEs in a circle. Starbolt I want to be a bit different. I want it to be a lot faster and lower damage. And if it rolls an AoE mod, I want it to sort of hit out in a cone, kind of like Ice Shot in Path of Exile. And that should be super easy. So, let's go to, I guess it will be Libraries, Skill Library. Obviously, to Starbolt will do cold damage, whereas Firebolt deals fire damage. I left an open skill slot here. Should probably kind of continue to do that. Yeah. Okay. So let's start with the... Yeah. So, this will be Starbolt. Let's just make some generic stuff here. Generic formatting. And essentially, oh, numlock, please. I think initially I just want this first value. I'm going to skip one again, like I said. And this will be 0 mods available to start with. Okay. Then I need to copy this. Okay, so this I didn't label yet, so I should label this. This is sweep, and then Fireball. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reorganize this a bit. I'm going to move these to all be on the ability that they should be on. Because it should actually ultimately make it easier. Easier for me to make new abilities if I reorganize it like this. So this is everything in here that's related to sweep. And then I'm going to reorganize this for all of them. Did I copy paste? I did. I meant to cut paste. Oh, and gotta drink my juice. Stay hydrated. Oh. Today was super, super hot up here, so I actually spent a good like 30 minutes in the pool cooling off, and I came in and took a cold shower, and then realized it was like almost 5, and I hadn't tweeted yet or set anything up, and was like, legit might be. Alright. So, and now I'm drinking juice. I've been trying to be like a little bit healthier, but on top of that, it's just so cold, or so hot that like, it's like, you know what? I don't want like a hot steaming thing of coffee. I want some cold juice. I'm just craving the colder weather stuff. Alright. So it all should be in this format more or less. So name, script. Originally it made sense to keep the same data stuff by the same data stuff, so like all the scripts in one part, all the descriptions in one part, and so on. But now that it's going to get messier, I think it's easier for me to put everything related to one spell in one place. Since hopefully today, if everything goes sort of how I'd like it to, we'll end up with a lot more abilities. I'm hoping to get at least 8 abilities done, which will double the total number in the game right now. But as many as I can get done today, I would love to put in here. So, yeah, since this will get so big so fast, I think it's better to try to keep this stuff organized like this. Oh, and what this script is this is just my like library initialization script. So I have an object that has like all the data on it, of all the different skills and whatnot that can be just easily pointed to and referenced whenever I need it. Rather than, like loading in a file with the data every single time or whatever. So like basically this loads it all into memory. So it doesn't really matter the order that this is done in, because this is all just stagnant data. So I can organize it however the heck I want, which is very nice. Okay. And I want to get to the data for Fireball. It should be this. Or sorry, Meteor. Oh, And another reason why I'm doing this now is because I have so few abilities. Because I only have 8 abilities in the game right now. I only have to do this for a few of them to then have it reformatted for everything. Whereas if I wait to do this, it'll be a much more of a pain in the ass to reorganize. Yeah, hex. And let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll do this. Hex, and this goes in at the top. Okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and move all these names over so it's easier, so it's clearer for me to see all this. Oh crap! Didn't want to do spaces. I'll do those. Overrune's 8, really? I may have messed that up. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're both the same data down here, but they're a little different. Oh, but I didn't screw that up. Okay, yeah. And this can actually go away. Okay. So I just did hex, so this is the data for magic weapon, which makes sense. Then I need to grab magic weapon script. Magic weapon, cool. Yeah, magic Magic shield. Almost there. I'm doing this so that way I can easily just paste a whole block for everything I need for one skill, paste it, and then write over all the values. And this way, if they're all in one place for each ability, it's much easier for me to do, as opposed to having to copy from each section. And, yeah. So I think this is a much better way for me to approach it, for quickly being able to generate new abilities. So now we're on to, enchant shield. Which, yeah, fair enough. I did copy all the spaces. And then we need the data for the shield. Which I'm putting after the mods, which probably kind of doesn't make sense, but it's all in one place, and that's what I mostly care about. Don't copy it, cut it. Nova Rune? Nova Rune. Skill data for Nova Rune. Got our last ability, and then I'm gonna kind of just do a quick pass to condense stuff. This is, yes, enchant weapon. Okay, yeah, so let's go ahead and take this out. A lot of these notes are pretty important, so I can't really delete those. Can get rid of all of that. That's fine. And I kind of like these names being really far to the right. Oh, here, let me do it this way. Just so that I can quickly scroll down and see this. I want to eventually find a way to configure different color schemes for different comment styles, so that way I can make this even more readable for me, so I can quickly find each one. But this should work just fine. Oh, here, I can just do something more or less like this. And I might later also put this at the front, so that way either way I can quickly see, but again, I'm a little bit paranoid about making this formatting decent, just because once I get, 40, 50 skills in here, which is what I'm planning on having, I want it to be very easy and quick for me to look through this. So. Oh, and I need to do this for sweep as well. Okay, so these are the first 8 abilities that I have: Sweep, Fireball, Meteor, Hex, Magic Weapon, Enchant Shield, Nova Rune, and Enchant Weapon. So, let's go ahead and let's take one of these, let's copy it, I'm going to make a generic version. As in, I'm going to remove all of the personal data. Oh, you know what? These should still be the same, actually. The only personal data is this. Which means, did I mess these ones up? No, because these are single dimension arrays. Okay. However, the generic version, this should be a 0. These should be blank. Don't know exactly what this is for. I can't quite remember, so I'm just going to 0 these out, because that makes sense. And then this should work as the generic version. So I'm going to take this, put it up at the top, so I can just quickly come back in and paste this whenever I need it. And these I should comment out individually, and then this I should comment block out. Beautiful. So now, whenever I want to make a new skill, I can just quickly copy this, scroll to the bottom. Oh, it's still there. Good. And then paste it. Okay, so this ability is going to be Star Bolt. Everything's still looking good on my stream side. Good. My internet's been a little bit dodgy lately, so I like to check every few minutes. Oh, juice. Okay. So, this is for ability 11. Okay, and then I'm going to write in the generic title for this. This script doesn't exist yet, but it will. I kind of like Starbolt as one word. And then, right, so I need the quick description. So the name here is Starbolt, and the quick description is fires an icy projectile. Easy. Oh, you know what? I think that is normally mana cost. Weapon 15, 20. No, it's not mana cost. Well, 35 for enchant shield seems correct. Okay, it is mana cost. Beautiful. So let me write that in here and in the generic one. Mana cost. Okay. So what else do I need to fill in here for now? I technically don't need to fill in anything here. Okay, so it's going to be very similar to the Fireball ability, so let's go ahead and copy that script and change what we need. So this will be SER Starbolt. Alright. So these are all of the mods, which these are going to be different. This is actually fine. This one is technically fine, but I'll just add in the note that it is the cone AoE. I don't think I'm going to do volley for Starbolt. I don't like that. Obviously, I'm not going to do ignites. I do like Pierce a lot for Starbolt, for how I want this ability to work. So we've got range, we've got Pierce, we've got the cone AoE, and I don't know what the final mod's going to be, but I need to change this one just to make sure that this is a 4. And yeah, this should not be volley. So let's go ahead and I guess I'll make this a 3 and this a 4, and we'll just swap these for now, and I'll figure out what this mod is later. Oh. This to be an end comment block, and this to be the start. Okay. The compiler should fix itself now. Beautiful. So the second position. Okay, so this is the mana cost upgrade amount, or mana cost increase per mod. Which that system I might expand farther. I don't know. It is something that's easy, or that would be better for me to do sooner, because it's easier to implement when I'm first implementing abilities than it is to go back and retroactively fix. But I think I just gotta do it this way, because I don't know exactly how I want to do it yet. I just have to do it later, and it's fine. It's not like it's like horribly awful for me to do it later. The reason for that being, I may want to make it so that way the increase per mod is dependent on what the mod is that rolls, because certain mods, because then it gives me more room to balance the mods, where if the mod is really strong, I can just make it increase the mana cost by that much more, which I think is a fine way to do that. And so I might want one for every possible mod, which then would mean that I would need a lot more, and I need to find a way to set it up and all that stuff. And so when I make a new ability, it'd be nice to, or when I'm first implementing the abilities, it'd be nice to already know what that structure needs to look like. But I don't know if that's how I want to do it, or exactly how, or any of that. So I think I just gotta, deal with it. And potentially come back later. Okay, so let's go back to the Starbolt script. What was I doing? Oh yeah. So I'm just going top down, so I've kind of changed the mods. The mana cost is set right. At some point, I should probably go through and generic these, except the problem is that abilities have sort of different classes, and I don't know exactly how many different ones I'm going to have. Like, for example, this is a projectile one, which obviously is going to have some different fundamental basis than a melee one, than a buff, than a whatever, so yeah. So I do need to pull the weapon damage and the weapon speed. Okay, so this is no longer going to make the fireball projectile. So, I'm just going to highlight this, so when I come back to this code, I'll see that highlight and know that that's where it was. I need to make the hitbox object. Skill objects. Fireball projectile. I'm just going to copy this, because it's going to be pretty similar. This is going to be Starbolt projectile. Oh, which means I need a new sprite. SPR Starbolt. Do a 4x4 grid. I like that. I think that blue is a little bit too blue. That's a little too gray. That will probably work. It being like kind of weirdly lopsided is fine. Actually, I think it'll look better if I do it that way. And then we can like boom. Beautiful. Nice and simple. So I don't go past the 8 mark, so let me go ahead and just shift this slightly. How do you go from here to, like, the bigger one? You kinda can't. Oh, cool. Beautiful. It is a little bit smart and knows you may want to do that. So let's change the width to 8, and the height to... let's make it like 24, and let's top justify it. And the reason I'm doing this is so that way I can put in the little trailing effect. Nice. Because of that, I need to actually make different kinds of trailing effects. So let's go ahead and just a subtle, simple animation. Okay. It's a little fast, but that gets fixed elsewhere. Oh. Whoops. I drew this facing up when I should have drawn it facing right for it to work with the old code. But in theory, I should kind of do it this way anyways. Because in my fireball code, I had to rotate it by 90 degrees because I drew the fireball wrong. So I can take this, and now I don't need to rotate it. Uh-oh. Am I wrong? Oh. I think I'm wrong. I think I just need to rotate this sprite, which is fine. That's totally doable. Image. Rotate all frames clockwise 90 degrees. Beautiful. Totally fine. Fixed. Okay. So, this time we're not moving in the fire damage. We are moving in to cold damage. So this I want to do less damage than fireball. And I believe this first one here is the damage mod. 2 on Nova Rune. It should be like 1 on fireball. I think it's 1 on sweep. And 1 on fireball. Yeah. So let's make this like 0.5 or something for now. All these numbers, I'm not doing balance yet, so all these numbers will probably be changed at some point, but just for initial point, or just for the initial idea, we'll do this. So if I do half damage, like, let's sort of, to make it very, very clear, let's do half for everything. So if I do half damage, I should make the mana cost half of what Fireball was. So the mana cost on Fireball is 10. So let's make the mana cost on this 5. The increase per mod on Fireball, I believe, is 5. Oh no, Fireball's mana cost is... Yeah. 10 and 5. So let's make this one... Let's make it 3. Because it's close enough, and again, it's kind of placeholder anyways. The cast range for now doesn't matter. Okay, so we were here. So now, rather than creating the Fireball projectile, we will create the Ice Bolt. Or sorry, not Ice Bolt, Star Bolt. Just have a little bit of flavor there. Projectile. We move in the angle, we move in that. We move in the cold damage. We do not have Ignite. We do still have AoE and Pierce, though, in theory. And we don't have Volley anymore. Okay. I did that a little weird, but there we go. Duration. Where do I set the duration? Because obviously this. Is that just that? Yes, it's just set here. So the duration is technically the range. I'm fine with it having the same base range as Fireball and then also get doubled by the mob. That's totally fine. So I'm not going to touch that. Actually, I am going to touch it. I'm going to make it not half as much, but 3/4 as much. And the reason for this is because I'm going to make the projectile faster. So the projectile speed here is 5 normally for Fireball. So let's make this... doing it 25% faster is a little weird, but I can do it like 7. So we'll go a little bit farther as well, and that's fine. Again, I'm not really balancing, just getting the overall idea across. I need to keep all these values. What does it do with the variables when it gets them? So this duration stuff is fine. I need to make the AoE hitbox. So this is the Fireball AoE. Again, I'm going to duplicate this to create the Starbolt AoE, but it's going to be a bit different. So this is the Starbolt Cone. So we need a new thing here. Does 64 by 64 make sense? That's a little big. Let's make it 32 by 32. So then, need to know where the center line is, ideally. Why did those come out different? Does it matter where you start for the line draw? Yeah, it does. Beautiful. Two. Let's just do that. There-ish. Let's bring it all the way. Is that right? Or is that right? That's right. Oh. Sure. Oh, and I need to rotate this again, but that's fine. Oh, I can do that here. Cool. This should be in here. So if AoE's 1, then instead what you're going to draw is you're going to draw Starbolt Cone. Yeah, go ahead and move all the damage in, that's fine. The duration is about the same. Should probably be a little bit faster. I believe this stuff is the same, except I just need to move or change these values just like I did before. Does it mean that I can just copy and paste over? I think it does. And if this hits the wall... do I want it to AoE if it hits the wall? Since this is a cone, probably not. Yeah, I think I would just want to do this. Because the AoE can't go backwards on this, so the only thing that it could do is hit through a wall, and I don't really want that. Alright, so... we have the duration toggle, we have all this, we have the angle and the proj speed and all that good jazz. The only variable in here that needed to be changed was the projectile speed, because everything else is just initialization stuff. We have the hit list thing. We even have the image speed already set. 5 is insane, though. This should be like 0.75, and I believe I screwed that up on Fireball, which is why this got inherited. And then let me just double check the code on the AoE. It's just a duration thing. It runs the damage code. The image speed here doesn't matter because this doesn't have an animation. Okay. So let's go back to here. We have the projectile. We have all that. We have the minute. Okay. So, in theory, this and 3 mods already work, because the duration should already do something, the Pierce will already do what it's supposed to do, and the AoE will now create the cone effect. So I just need one more mod, and I need to turn on the mods, and this ability is actually completely done, assuming it works. So, let me put these in. It goes duration, cone, pierce. So this is, oh, and duration is range. This is increased cast range, or increased range. Because it's not how far you can cast it, it's how far the projectile will go, which is different. What was it? Cast range, and then, hitting an enemy will create a chili cone. Or will create a cone of icy damage. And then the third one was what? Pierce. Projectiles pierce target. And this reminds me that on Fireball, I made it so that way you don't multiple AoE, you only AoE on the hit that pops it, which I think makes sense for the ability. I think what I'm going to do for Starbolt is make that not true. I want the cone to be hit by every enemy it hits by, because I think the way that that ability will then like fan out and like work is really awesome. It'd be similar to Ice Shot in Path of Exile, and I really like mechanically how that ability feels. So, what is the exception that I put in for Pierce? Yeah, so I don't need and Pierce equals 0. This is fine. So this is if it expires. I don't care about AoE if this thing expires. If it expires, it just goes away. If it hits an enemy, I want it to AoE, regardless of the pierce. If there's no pierce and no AoE, yeah, it just goes away. If there is AoE, it does this. If there's no pierce, it does this. So what this means is if there's AoE and pierce, it will AoE every time it hits, and it'll go until it expires. Perfect. Or if it hits a wall, it just goes away. Cool. And what I'll probably end up doing, I'm not going to make that decision now. So I'm probably going to remove Pierce off Fireball, because I don't like multiple explosions happening if you Pierce so it doesn't happen. What it means is Pierce and AoE as 2 different mods on Fireball kind of don't work well together. So I actually, because especially since I already have extra mods for Fireball planned, I'm kind of okay with just removing Pierce as a mod on Fireball, because it doesn't do anything mechanically interesting with it. It's just because projectile abilities can have that mod, and I just thought of it, so I coded it. You know, it very much is like a placeholder mod. So remove Pierce from Fireball. Whereas with this ability, it actually does something really interesting. Alright, so I fixed how that works. So now I need to come up with one fourth and final mod. So we have the increased range, we have the cone, we have the pierce. These three mods synergize with each other really, really well. Is there another synergistic mod I can come up with that works well for this? Cast speed would be reasonable, which actually I realized that's something I didn't change. I want the cast speed to be a little bit faster. Here we go. So let's make this 15 seconds, or 15 frames instead of 20 frames. And the stop cooldown should be, let's make it like 12. So it's a little bit faster. So I can make it further faster, which would be kind of crazy. I could do reduced mana cost, which I do like a lot. So mana cost isn't inherently synergistic. However, this is an ability you want to spam as much as possible. So that's nice. And this is an ability that I do want to be a spammable core ability. So when you get a bunch of mods on it, it's going to get oppressive to maintain your mana. So it does make sense to be able to mitigate that, because I do want this to be an ability you can spam. Where Fireball, I do want to be a slower meteor cast, and when you get a bunch of mods on it, it like multiple projectiles and AoEs and stuff. So if you can't quite maintain spamming it, it's actually fine for that ability. Because it does enough, like, it's not an ability where to wipe out a pack you're expected to spam it. 2 to 3 casts of Fireball should kill a whole pack. Where this, not necessarily. So I think a reduced mana on this one makes a lot of sense. Reduced mana cost. Because this is an ability you will probably have to cast several times to wipe a whole pack. Oh, I already have this open, right. So I need to make that the mod. So this would be reduced mana cost. So the variable would be, I guess just reduced cost. Sure. This would be equal to 0. This would set it to 1 if it finds the mod. And then all the mod would do is here at mana cost. That's the player's mana cost mod. So we would take this whole value, and at the end, we would multiply it by 1 minus, what do I want the value to be? 25%'s pretty good. So that means for the most part, it'll pay for itself, even at level 1. Yeah, let's just do it. I'm not doing balancey stuff, so let's just do it as this. That'll be good enough to get the idea across. And let me just make sure I have all of them here. I need to change the number of rollable mods now to 4, because now they all exist. This cast range value is not crazy important, but it's effectively about the same as Fireball. That's purely for my targeting cursor. It doesn't do anything besides make it visually a little more clear what's going on. So it'd be about 200. Again, as I said at the top of the stream, I need to refine that a bit more anyways before it becomes crazy useful. So this should work as an ability now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a debug thing to have this ability just on the ground in the initial room, so that I can mess with it, and then as I make my other abilities, I can replace this dropped item with whatever ability I want. Creation code. Item ID equal to 11. Oh, and a big thing. These are the abilities? Yes, I don't have this ability actually. This ability doesn't actually have an icon. what was I using? I was using this one and this one, or this one and this one. Yeah. Perfect. That'll work. Yo, what's up? I don't know any RPG prefixes. FRPM each other. Oh, from each other. What is the A stand for? Gotcha. So ARPG is it means action RPG. It's kind of a dumb name, like most genre-defining names are. The idea is action RPGs are meant to be different from JRPGs or CRPGs. So JRPGs, Japanese RPGs, think like Final Fantasy and stuff. They're almost always turn-based, and they're very like stats heavy, hence the RPG part. CRPGs are sort of like the Western version of that. Those are more like Fallout, Wasteland, what's another stuff like the Divinity series. Those are called character RPGs, and they're much more focused on role playing than on like stats and numbers. And they tend to be turn-based as well, but their combat system, rather than being like random encounters, which is very typical JRPG, is more like tactical grid-based combat. I think you could technically count XCOM as a CRPG, but that's technically more like a tactics-based game. Because you're not really role-playing much in that, you're just engaging with the combat systems. An action RPG got its name because it's different from those. It's real-time with RPG stat system. So this would be Diablo, this would be Path of Exile, this would be Grim Dawn, Torchlight series, Borderlands basically counts. It's very, very similar. And typically ARPGs are loot hoarders. And mine more or less is a loot hoarder as well. It's much simpler than most loot hoarders, but yes, the whole idea is you're wanting to get drops. Drops and better gear is like the main driving point of the game. Actually, and I embrace that so far, I don't even have experience and levels. It's all about the gear. Because, in my opinion, if the main progression system is gear, you should probably focus on that, and everything else should only come if you need it. So if it ends up being where XP and levels make sense, I will put them in. But my initial design is, hey, if items matter, let's just focus on the items. Yeah, that's a very, very good question, because the names are all over the place. Okay. And like one could argue that something like, oh, wouldn't like the Witcher series be an action RPG because it's an action game and you have RPG elements? It's like, technically yes, it fits the literal definition, but what ARPG tends to mean is very much like a really stat-heavy RPG, but unlike the turn-based cousins, it's a real-time sort of top-down kind of thing. A good way to think about, too, if you ever play like the Gauntlet series, think like Gauntlet with long-term RPG progression. Right, that's a pretty good way to describe the usual playstyle. Okay, so I have the icon, and I made the dummy item, well, the cheated-in item, so I should be able to pick it up and use it. So let's go ahead and see if this even works. I give this about a 40% chance of just working first try. Yeah, let's place the scribe. That'll be a good test. Okay, so there was no icon, so that's not good. And I can't see it because there was no icon? Okay. Why is there no icon? Oh, because I drew this in the wrong slot. I skipped a slot, just like I did this here. I should write that, make that clear here, that I skipped this one. Okay. This is 6. I'm leaving open one skill open between these for reasons. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and equip Starbolt. See if it works. Okay, cool. Looks like it's working. It does move faster, it goes a bit farther, and I can cast it a lot faster, and it costs less mana. So it functions more or less the way that I want it to. I'm going to leave and come back to reset my mana, and then actually try it out. It's doing the same amount of damage. It's doing 10 damage when it shouldn't. And I'm out of mana. Yeah, so it slows down. Okay. So, why is it doing normal amounts of damage? The damage that gets added in, I didn't multiply it? Huh. I thought I did. Oh, well, that would be why, because I didn't actually modify it. Did I accidentally modify it on the wrong one? Did I modify it on Fireball when I was looking at that for reference? I totally didn't, because that's so messy, or that's so much more complicated, I would have noticed right away. Huh, yeah, okay. So I want this to do less damage than Fireball, but how much less? Let's make it 3/4. Well, let's make it half. I picked the wrong starting class, but that's fine. It doesn't really matter. It kind of matters, but yeah, this is my gear. Okay, cool. Just need the sword. Okay. And then I'm going to use some of my debug money to upgrade this so I can test out the mods. I'm just going to fully mod it. These are all 4 mods it can have. Yeah. So it should be surprisingly good at handling packs that are close together. Ooh, okay. Yes, so it creates the hitbox on every frame, it looks like, when it's not supposed to. And the AoE is not inheriting the correct image angle. But yeah, it shouldn't create like a billion AoE things right there. Okay, so that's a problem. And that makes sense, because on Fireball, it can't create AoE if it pierces, so that issue doesn't come up. So here's what I need to do. On this, enemy damage references hit list. This is if it collides with the enemy. How can I reference? I can do other in an instance place code, right? I should be able to. So this should be if AoE 1 and oh wait, no, hit list is on this, right? Yes, so then other.id ds list find index, this would be other.id. So, and this, how do I do this in a damage script? Because I want it to, if it finds it doesn't do the thing. What do I check if the thing's been hit? I thought I did it in this script. Oh, sorry, I do it here. And okay, so that's what it would be. That makes sense. Oh, sorry. Wrong hitbox. Okay, so this will check to see if it's been hit, if the object has been hit before, so it's the same thing as the damage check. So this should deal with it. The problem here is I run the damage script above this. I believe I need to run... What doesn't it like about this? Oh. Oh, that's fine, actually. This and... Oh, I didn't define the actual list. Hit list, comma, other.id. Beautiful. And yeah, I was bad with my checks. GML lets you get away with this, but it's a bad habit. So I believe I want to just run the damage script after this, because otherwise, what'll happen is it'll hit the thing, add the ID to the hit list, and this will always fail. So that should work now. And then also, I realized I didn't inherit the angle because it didn't matter for the fireball AoE because that was just a circle. This is not a circle. So I need angle to equal other dot angle. Because this does get an angle. And then, where do I handle... Or can I just do image angle equals other dot angle? I mean, I could just do image angle equals other dot image angle, right? That should work. Just keep it simple. Have it just pass its same angle over. Yeah. So let's go ahead and oop, wrong menu. What is it? Ah, this one. So I have this now. Yeah, let's go ahead and mod it up. It's still doing it wrong. Is it at least firing at the correct angle? Okay, so it's making the cones in the correct angle, but it's still making 1,000,000 when it shouldn't. So it means that this pass or this check is in fact passing. What did I get wrong here in my logic? Don't have it break from the scripts would continue going, it would do this. Then it would add the hit list. The ID to the hit. So in the next frame, when it tries to do this again, it should fail. And not do this again. But it is. I mean, I doubt that makes any sense, but I can try it like that. These are the kinds of slowdowns that will prevent me from getting all the skills implemented today that I want to get implemented. Yeah, that changes nothing. That's what I thought. Well, poop. Is there a more clever way for me to do this? Not really. Let me see exactly how I wrote it. Yeah. So this should work. Should absolutely add in the ID. Which means that it shouldn't... Oh. This is actually on this object. So when this ends up adding in the ID, it should then fail here. Oh, that's a problem. I need to run it before here. Yeah, I think what I need to do is I think I need to embed this here and here. There's a little bit of redundancy going on there, as far as it'll then check again if it's colliding, which it is. So that's a little bit weird. But I think this will fix the problem. So again, let's fully mod it up, just that it gets the create the AoE. And this is specifically the interaction with the AoE and the pierce. Oh, whoops. It's still doing it. Now I really don't think it should be doing it though. That's kind of crazy. Because okay, here's what I can do. This first script here is actually just a simple, I mean, kind of annoying, but all it's doing is this, which I can technically bypass, because this is the script that really matters. And I can just hard code this ability a bit differently, and that'll actually fix it. Let's go back to this here. Because I already have this check, right? What I would do is I would run this in here. So it's effectively doing the same thing as the script, but removing the redundant check that I think was causing a problem. And it's if it collides with an enemy, it does all this stuff to the enemy and adds the ID in to this thing's hit list. But then, because it doesn't have this is if it doesn't pierce and it doesn't make a cone, it just, boom, destroys itself and moves on. If it does have AoE, then you need to do all of this. And then here, because again, this is still on the collision check, it'll then run all this, adding the ID to the hit list. So then this check should fail on the next frame, and it won't do any of this. And then for pierce, I would again need to do the same thing. Because they should take the damage initially. Oh. Maybe I don't need this one? Actually, if I have this one? Yeah, I think I don't need this one. Actually. Because this isn't an either-or. It just always does this if it gets past this check. Which will handle all this. And then we get to pierce. And this is just if it doesn't pierce, then it destroys itself. Cool. And then, yeah, if it hits a wall, it just goes away. Okay. Man, I thought this ability was going to be a fast one. I got it done, like, super, super quick, and then bug fixing. This is why you test your abilities, though. Because it would suck to find this, like, 3 days from now and get stuck doing this when I, you know, way after I made the ability and don't understand it anymore. It's still doing it? Why? Hold on. This check should be failing now. This check. I mean, I can put it back to what the old check was. Because basically, the only difference between these two checks is that the other is on the ID here, with the other's on the hit list here. Because this is a with statement, they're flipped. But this should do the same thing. Because either way, it's on instance, nested within this collision. So other would refer to this thing's ID. So this should work. And I'm pretty sure if my check that I put in there didn't do what I thought it did, it would have just spit out an error code. So I'm not sure why that's messed up, but apparently it is. And it is warmed. Quite warm. Oh, I didn't mod it. So yeah. Oh, because there's another one on the ground there. Because that's how it works. Yep. Well, what the hell? What the hell? What this is telling me is either that for some reason this isn't working, which makes no sense. Okay, so if AoE and Pierce aren't a thing, it just does this, which makes sense. If Pierce is equal to 1, and we don't have AoE, what happens? Nothing happens because I don't have the damage script elsewhere. So that's a scenario that I need to fix. I think what I would just need to do this just needs to be if Pierce is equal to 0. I don't care if AoE is equal to 0 or not. This should just always happen if Pierce is equal to 0. Because when it collides with the enemy, it should do all this crap and... Then... Oh, and because Pierce is equal to 0, it then kills itself. Which makes sense. The projectile does. If AoE is equal to 1... If AoE is equal to 1, then it creates the object, or it creates the cone object, passes all the variables in. This with statement here is messing this up. So it'll create the object, then, after creating the object, it will run the collision. That's exactly what the problem was. And then... So then they take damage and it does all this crap. And then it checks for if Pierce equals 0. And if Pierce equals 0... So if AoE equals 0, it just goes straight to here. The target takes the damage. This all happens. If AoE equals 1, it does all this. The target takes the damage. It goes on to Pierce. So I actually think I don't need these now. If I'm correct. Now that I know that I'm dumb and I put this here. I think if I get rid of that and put the damage script back at the top. Oh no! That's why I couldn't do that. But this is literally just the damage script with no changes to it, right? No, it does have a change, because I removed this. Okay. So all of this makes sense why I have to do it this way, why I can't just use the scripts. Okay, so if AoE does happen, then this happens and it adds the thing to the list. Then it goes to check if it pierces. And if it doesn't pierce, it tries to do this again. This check will fail, but that's fine. Because sometimes AoE won't happen, and then this does need to happen. So then it goes through all this, and it either happens or it doesn't, and it destroys itself. If Pierce does happen, and AoE happens, we're good. If Pierce doesn't happen, or if AoE doesn't happen, and Pierce doesn't happen, this ability does nothing right now. So I need to add one of these as well into an else here. This is probably really messy, and there's probably a better way to do it, but because this has been a problem, I just want to get the functionality in. If this works, I can clean it up later. And again, the whole reason why I had to do all that was because if I have the damage script at the top, because I use the collision check for the AoE as well, it would make it so the AoE would never work. And if I put it at the bottom, that doesn't work, right? Because the object could destroy itself for them, and it's still not doing it. Well, why the hell not? It makes the cone. It adds the ID to the list. Therefore, this check should fail on every frame after this. Welcome, Paradox. I should have looked this up at the beginning. Other should totally work in an instance place function. I gotta check, though. Maybe it doesn't, and that's the problem. GML other. Keywords. The other is involved in a collision event or with the with function. Yeah, we're good. Yeah. So that's not the problem. Yeah, this is incredibly frustrating because I actually have no idea what's wrong with the logic. I'm guessing this check just doesn't understand what the heck I'm talking about. Okay, let me get rid of all of this and do this the way that I think will just make it not work. And if it still works, then there's my problem. So I'm pretty sure if I put the damage script up here, just like how it would normally work on a hitbox, because it reads code top down, this will add the ID of the enemy into the hit list. So when we check here if we should AoE or not, it'll fail because it'll be in the hit list. So the AoE won't work. The Pierce will work just fine. Right? So this is if this check actually functions properly. It should now just not work at all. So let's test this. And again, Pierce should work just fine. And it's still working. Okay, so it's absolutely the check. So you see those triangles going on there? Paradox? It's only supposed to make one triangle per enemy hit. Not like 8. And it's because it's making it on every frame when it shouldn't be. So for some reason, it doesn't know what the hell I mean by this check. So here's what's annoying. Is this exactly the same check that's here? The other is inverted because this is within a with statement and the other one isn't. So this is adding to the hitbox hit list the ID of the object. This is so that stuff can only hit enemies once. So, like, if it pierces, it won't hit it on every single frame, right? And this totally works. So the idea is that on this code, I just use that same check. Again, the other's inverted, because this is the hitbox item. So this one has the list, and the parent enemy that it collides with is the other's ID. So I have to move where the other is. But then it's checking, does the entry exist? And so, the reason why I had my code all weird before I just deleted it was because I figure, if I run the enemy script damage at the top, what'll happen is it'll collide, add it to the hitbox list, so this check will always fail before it has a chance to succeed. But instead, this check just doesn't do anything, apparently. It's totally looking in the wrong spot. And I'm not sure why. I mean, I know this is wrong. I'm going to do this, and it's going to give me an error. Because it's going to say that the hit list doesn't exist. Or it's going to fix my code, and I'm not going to understand why. The classic. Oh, I probably should be picking Astronomer, not Scribe for this, because the Astronomer has more regen. No, it technically doesn't. I'm wrong there. Okay. They both have the same starting stats for me. Ooh. It changes nothing. It doesn't even throw an error code. Okay. So it did and didn't do what I wanted. And then also, technically, it doesn't matter yet because it's not even doing what I want it to do in the first place. I gotta move this thing's origin, though, technically. Which is, middle left. But anyways, that's not the problem here. That's not causing the issue. So for some reason, even though hit list doesn't exist on the other object, it doesn't give me an error code. So that means that this check could be looking totally in the wrong place and it wouldn't tell me. That's a problem. I'm pretty freaking sure, though, it needs to be this, though. If it's instanced 8 times, wouldn't that be all the collisions going through the enemy? Exactly. So, I want this to only happen once, and I already have that kind of code set up with this hit list system. So basically, right now, if a hitbox hits an enemy, its ID gets added into the hit list for that instance of that hitbox. And so then it takes damage and all that stuff. But it only does that if the ID isn't already on the hit list. So this way I can have projectiles pierce, or huge AoE that happen for multiple frames, or whatever, and it won't hit the same enemy multiple times. This totally works. It works on all the abilities I've used on. That's not a problem. So the fact that this is making multiple AoE, well, this makes sense, because every frame that it's colliding, it'll create a new AoE object, right? So that's why I have this check in here. It uses the same list and the same check to go, hey, if you've already hit this thing before, don't make the AoE, right? Only make the AoE if you've never hit it before. If the ID of the enemy is not on the hit list. That's the logic here. I have a feeling this is looking at the wrong list or the wrong ID, and that's the problem. But I'm not sure why it's looking at the wrong stuff. And the reason for this is because how the damage script works. And this is like a jumbled mess, I know. But it's within a with statement on the enemies. So, it adds the ID to the other object's hit list, i.e. the hitbox's hit list. And the check, again, is on the other .hit list, and it's this object's ID. But it's because it's within a with statement on parent enemy. Which means, for the projectile, right, this is not within a with statement, right? This is on the hitbox. So it should be the exact same check, except it's its own hitbox, not the other things. It's its own hit list, not the other thing's hit list. But it is the other thing's ID. So this should work. This check should work. Otherwise, it's the exact same check. And either I would expect it to always fail, or work. In that, because I run the script damage at the top here, it should add the enemy to the hit list before it even gets to here. So it should just always fail. But instead it always succeeds, and that makes no sense to me. I mean, I can just, for science, do this and see what the hell this does. But this should do nothing. This should also make a hitbox in every single frame. Oh, I don't have a weapon, so I can't use abilities. There we go. Yeah. And this makes sense, because, of course the hitbox's ID is not going to be within its own hit list. That just makes sense. What I wanted to check is this thing's ID. So it would have to be other.id. But this also never fails, even though it should. Okay, so I still haven't I identified the problem, which is bad, but I think I can bypass it. And here's my thought. I'm going to approach this differently and see if that just works. So this script is just this code that then runs this script. So I'm just going to put this in, right? Then, here, where it would do all of this, I can take all of this, which is the AoE check, nest it into here, the problem with this, and why I didn't want to do it this way, is this is within the with statement. So, I can do stuff like check other.aoe, and this will refer to this object's variable, which is what I want. Can still create this object, but now it's in another with statement. And I believe this other here, I think this will refer to the enemy object, and not the Starbolt projectile. So this is where shit gets really, really complicated unnecessarily, which is why I didn't want to do it this way. But I think I can do this. Let's go Fizz Pass. Because the enemy object does have these variables, I want to call the variable that I'm putting on the enemy object, I want to call it something different. The duration I can just hard set, that's fine. So let's call this Fire Pass, Cold Pass, Lightning Pass. This would be Fire Dam, Cold Dam, and Lightning Dam. So I hate this solution, because even if it works, I don't know why it wasn't working in the first place. And that worries me, right? I always hate when I didn't find out what was wrong, because it could come up again in some other way, and I still won't know how to fix it. And I hate that. But this has a good chance of actually working. So up here, we are referring to, this is just the collision between the projectile and the enemy. So the others refer to the projectile stuff. So onto the enemy, we're passing on these temporary variables. So now if I with statement here, I'm pretty sure this with statement's on the enemy object, which is why I needed to make these. Maybe it doesn't, and I'm just wrong, but I think it does. So now, within this with statement, the other refers to the enemy object. So now I need to do this. Either way, though, this should work, I think, because of how GML handles temporary variables. The image angle's a problem. I also need to have another one for angle pass. Equals other dot. Oh. Let's just copy this. And this would be angle pass. And then because this is all happening within the same code, the fact that this works for the piercing stuff means that it should work for creating the object. And then otherwise, we have our collision, and the only thing that we care about now in collision is if it pierces or not. And if it doesn't pierce, it kills itself. Otherwise, it just keeps going until the expiration. Or it hits a wall. So this should work. Maybe I'm wrong with how the with statements inherit each other, and I don't need to do all that, but that's just a really simple delete/small rewrite. But if either way this doesn't work, then I have no idea what the hell's wrong. And that's obviously a problem. Alright, let's get this tested. Hey! It looks like it works. Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah, I like that a lot. I used way too much mana doing all that, but... Okay, so that works. I can live with that code being a little bit garbaggio, but ideally with this ability you would group them up like that, and then their AoEs overlap, and it's amazing. So we fixed it, it looks like it works now, I can live with it. Again, I'm a little upset because I don't know why this happened, but it did. So, yeah. But, that's a new ability, purely finished with 4 mods. We did it. So I can move on to the next ability. And again, I'm not working on balancing stuff yet, I'm just trying to put a lot of the base abilities in, and then I can do a balance pass, and a, class design perk pass. And then it'll basically be a game from there. I'll just need to add in, 4 or 5 quests, and maybe a couple different areas and stuff, and, a handful of new enemies, and then we'll have pretty much the alpha build. Okay. So that was Starbolt. That took longer than I'd wanted, because that was a weird problem that took me forever to fix, but okay. So then I did want to put in Comet. Which is kind of like the cold version of Meteor. The idea with this, though, is it's a big projectile that hits and then breaks into a bunch of Starbolts. They're not literally going to be Starbolt. It's not going to cast your version of whatever Starbolt you have equipped, but essentially that's the idea, is it's one big icicle thing that hits the ground and shatters into a bunch of small ones. I guess I should actually put note that I have a couple ideas for further mods if I want to add more to it. Well, when I want to add more to this. Ideally, I think every ability, minimum, needs to have 8 potential mods. So that way, between all the different combinations, there's a fair bit of variety between what you can and can't roll. So there'll be some discussion on what's optimal, and there'll be a lot of discussion on playstyle. So I want at least 8 for each one. I don't nearly have the creative ideas or design power right now to come up with 8 ideas for every single one. I only need to have 4 for the ability to function, because you can have up to 4 mods on one ability. So I'm right now doing 4, but whenever I have ideas for more, I write them down, so that way when I come back through and want to, double that number, I'm not starting from square zero. So some ideas for this, I think some Ricochet would be really, really interesting. Ricochet or the PoE Chains ability would fit this ability well. Because I think the whole point of this ability and the satisfying mechanical part of this is getting that cone AoE and doing cool stuff with it. Like, the point of this ability is to be a quick projectile you can spam, and you want to hit as many things as possible. So creating the different mods to synergize with that well, I think makes a lot of sense. So I think having a ricochet off walls and potentially enemies allows it to hit more things at more angles. Taking the increased range farther by some way might be interesting. Something like I could add in or change something so each successful hit resets its duration. I mean, that would obviously be kind of broken, but something along that idea. So that way, like, if it hits, like, a whole bunch of enemies, it will then continue to keep going, so it can kind of, like, keep ricocheting or something. There's some way to sort of take that further. So some version of those different mechanics, I think, would further take this ability to an interesting place. Multiple projectiles would be fine. I'm not, like, a huge fan of that. I mean, it would be good, but it'd be good because every projectile ability is good with that. I think it's slightly less interesting on this ability than other projectile abilities, but that could still work. And I had one other idea for this. What was it? Oh, and then faster casting totally fits. We already have the reduced mana cost, and I think that fits a little bit better, but if I need to have just an extra mod, both of these mods, the multiple projectiles and faster casting, are mods that I could add to this that would make the ability better. So if I can only think of 6 abilities or 7 mods or whatever, I have a couple that I can just tack on. Okay, so let's make our next ability, which is Comet. And I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it. I mean, I gave you the overall idea, but yeah. So let me go up to the generic commented out script. And this is actually the damage mod. Let's get rid of the comment block. And then this is ability number 12. And this is SCR Comet. Let's add in the Comet title here, so we can easily find this later. Can't type right now, really can't type right now. So this is Comment, and this is calls down large comment that shatters on impact. Just a quick little description, because that's what that's for. So, this mana cost. I'm fine with this being a very big ability. So I'm fine with this mana cost being a lot. What's Meteor's base mana cost? I keep sounding like a broken record, but I'm not doing balance stuff, but it is nice to have a baseline that looks like it's 50. That's a lot. But sure, why not? 50? Mana cost increase per mod. What is it on Meteor again? Meteor's a good reference because it's the same idea of Meteor's the big meaty spell. 10 per. That makes sense. And the cast range is 200, which I like. I think that's completely fine. Let's go 200. So the damage mod on this obviously should be... Well, okay. So this is interesting. Meteor, right, is a big... Oh. Would you say you noticed some problem from before? Could it have been adding? Could have been the adding of an object to a hit list rather than the check itself? Here's the thing. No, because it does work. Because the whole reason I put in that code is for stuff like AoE damage and piercing. And it works on that. So the part where it's adding the ID to the list is on when it takes damage. And that's working because stuff doesn't take damage on multiple frames of an AoE or when a projectile pierces. It's just working. So that's why I found it so weird, is because it is properly adding the object to the hit list. And that's why I was so baffled. Is like, it has to be the check. It has to be that it's not checking at the correct place. But I don't know how that wasn't looking in the correct place, and I kind of expected it to fail if the hit list didn't exist. Which tells me it was finding the hit list. It just couldn't find the ID. And so I that's where I was, I no idea what was going on there. Alright, so for Meteor, right? Meteor hits, and Meteor's a big, chunky thing. Welcome up, welcome back, Ari Hawk. It's been a while. Meteor, right? It's a big, chunky hit and just one big AoE. This is different. This is going to be something that hits and shatters into a million projectiles. So I think the damage doesn't actually have to be that high on this, because the idea is it sends out a whole bunch of projectiles. So I guess the question here... Yeah, dude, it's been so long. How do I want to do this ability? Do I want it to be more different from Starbolt, or do I want it to be more similar? In that I could have it be that it has literally these exact same mods, and the idea with this is that it hits for some amount of damage, whatever, and instead of firing one projectile like Starbolt does, this is effectively the same thing, but it fires out like 12 in a circle, right? And then you're modifying those projectiles. I think that's interesting, and the symmetry is kind of cool. The only issue with that... Well, and it would be really, really easy, because I can literally have it create the same projectile hitbox and just pass in the different values. So, by that logic, the damage mods would be more or less the same. Because the reason why this ability is so much more expensive is because you're making a whole bunch of projectiles that all have stacking AoEs and pierce and all that crap, as opposed to one projectile. And I kind of like that. I think that's pretty cool. The alternative is I can try to make it different in many ways. So I still will have it make a whole bunch of projectiles, but go, you know what? Let's just ignore these mods and do something different, right? It's not going to create the cone AoE damage. It's going to do other things, and maybe it can do more single target can scale or whatever. And those are two very different ways to design this kind of ability. I think I like it a lot that first way, though. It also makes it really fast to implement. But I actually think that symmetry isn't going to come across as lazy. It's going to come across as interesting. And since I'm going to use the same object, right? It's going to create the Starbolt projectile object. It's just going to have different values. That means, in theory, that I can have additional synergistic effects with things being hit by Starbolts. Which also opens the door to some cool design space and abilities. So I like all of that. I like putting all of that together. I think whenever you can create intrinsic synergies, that tends to be a good idea. Like, I may not make a perk about it or another active ability or whatever about it, but I can make a unique. It's like, oh, objects hit by, Starbolts do blah. Or get blah debuff or whatever. And it's like, oh, cool! Well, that will scale with both of these abilities. Nice! Yeah, let's do it that way. And then again, it'll make it actually really, really easy to implement. Alright, cool. So, the damage mod should effectively be the same thing, then. I think as much symmetry there as possible makes sense. Yeah, man, how have you been? What have you been up to? It's been like a year and a half? Watch it be like 4 weeks and I'm just horrible with time. Which, by the way, I am horrible with time. as me starting the stream late today kind of shows. Yeah, so let's literally just copy these. Yeah, sure. I just need to replace these with 12s now. And this should be a 4. So the big difference here is the mana cost. It's 10 times more mana, so I'm fine with it firing out 10 projectiles. Although 10 doesn't divide very well into a circle, I kind of want to make it 12. This is going to have a bit of a cooldown, though, so I'm fine having it give you a little bit extra. So let's have it make 12 projectiles. I'll make some notes here. 12 projectiles. And then, yeah, because the effect gets multiplied by 12, having the mana cost go up significantly makes sense, because these become way more valuable on this kind of ability. Okay. Not much. I think this is the last time I got my license, and I'm a senior now. Okay. Last time I got a girl you. Not dating for a few years. Yeah. No. That was back when I, used to give a whole lot of dating advice. Kind of half not asked. Dude, you were from back in the day, man, when I was streaming some rando crap. Yeah, license is always awesome. I got mine way late. I got my license when I was 22, 21, 23, 21. I'm pretty sure I was 21. Yeah, the Dark Souls bingo runs. I do still like that, and I do want to go back to them, but I have to find a better way to do it. I definitely need to have it be like a race with other people and do some sort of squad streaming thing, and that I do want to bring back that kind of content, but I really need to do it differently. I do Zelda randomizers now, which are very, very similar. I do the Ocarina, or Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages randomizer runs, and I sometimes do A Link to the Past. But right now I'm working on this game, because I'm actually feeling pretty confident that in like a month or so I can have a very well-polished alpha. Which means 6 months from now I just die, because it's not going to be finished yet. Zelda is like I actually compare Zelda and Dark Souls all the time, because they're very similar on so many levels. It's just Dark Souls focus its design on combat and enemy placement, so it's still the same kind of problem-solvey, puzzle-y, critical thinking kind of thing, but around combat and enemies, where Zelda focus on puzzles and environments. But I would argue that in many ways the two series are incredibly similar. And I think that's why they end up being, why so many people my age like Dark Souls, is because we all grew up playing Zelda, and Dark Souls is kind of like a harder, more action-based version of that same kind of thing we grew up playing, and it kind of taps into a little bit of nostalgia naturally without realizing it. But just a theory. Alright. So let's get this implemented. So I'm pretty sure this is weird. I technically want to use the Meteor code, but I also technically want to use the Starbolt code. So I'm going to duplicate Starbolt and then think about this. So Comet, and the reason why I'm going to do this is it has all the mod code that I want, and the base code is pretty freaking close to what I want it to be. The difference here is I want to have Meteor's targeting system. I remember you working on a game where the main character was a vampire guy. Yep. That project's basically dead. I will probably come back to the ideas I had there and make a different project. But this project's so much better. This is such a better project for me, and I definitely want to go back to Trials of Hera as well. For those who don't know, so the first project was a Metroidvania project, and it was one of my first projects, serious coding, and it had all kinds of problems, and I made all kinds of mistakes, and fundamentally, it was solid, and it worked. But to keep developing it would have been a nightmare because of all the garbage that was in the back end. And then on top of that, I hit the point where I need to do like really good boss code and really, really clever level design, and that's just hard to do. So I decided to move on to other things. But I do want to come back to that kind of thing because a lot of the systems I developed and ideas there I love and would love to go back and work on a project like that again. I just want to get more experience with simpler mechanics for stuff like AI and whatnot. So that way when I go back to it, I have more of a foundation for that hard stuff. The other project that well, actually, I guess there's 2 more projects after that. So then there's Trials of Hera, which is a roguelike Zelda game I really, really want to make. You may see a theme here with the games I like to play and the games that I want to make. I think Binding of Isaac is a wonderful game. It's also based on the Legend of Zelda series. Binding of Isaac focused on the combat elements of the early games. I want to make a game very, very similar, but it focuses on the puzzle elements of the Zelda series. So it'll be procedurally generated puzzles and dungeons, and the RNG items in the run determine the mechanics for the puzzles. So stuff like grappling hook and boomerang and boots of speed and all that stuff, all those iconic Zelda-like mechanic items, I can put in a little bit of other kinds of ideas from other top-down games. But basically, the items are more of a mechanics thing than a power increase, and it adds more and more complexity to the game as you go through. Definitely want to revisit that. Obviously, procedurally generated systems, well-designed puzzles and all that. That is a crazy, crazy ambitious thing to do. It's a much larger scope than games like this. So that one, although I'm working on it when I have time, and I'm motivated specifically with ideas for that, not really any kind of focus. I do want to come back to that when I feel that I can tackle those kinds of systems. The third project is a game I'm calling Edisonia, which is like a steampunk-style version of the Mega Man Battle Network series. And that is a mechanically very simple game I can totally do, and I'm very confident I can make and finish that game. I just picked to do this one first. So I'll probably finish up this game, however long that takes. And I'll probably crank out Edisonia, because I'm confident I have the knowledge base to completely do that game. And then I'll revisit either the Metroidvania game or the Trials of Hera game. It would be awesome if I could get all 4 of those projects finished before I die. Not sure if that's going to happen. And by the way, I'm not dying. It's not like I have a terminal illness or anything. It's just, I anticipate it'll take me that long to complete these things. Old age is the main thing I have to fight here to get these all done. But yeah, so the problem here is if I look at the comet, right? This creates the starboat projectile and all this stuff. I don't want any of this. Once we get to here, I don't want this stuff. What I want is I want how this thing does it. So I need this casting code, which I don't have it all in here, so I can just plop that in here, which is cast range. And this is actually cast range, because it's a projectile that rays down from the sky. Also, yeah, Arihawk, I've gotten even better at speaking at people through a screen. So, my rhetoric and my flow have gotten a whole lot better from back in the day. Also, I've talked a lot with game design stuff, with other indie devs and other streams and stuff, so I've gotten really good when it comes to game stuff, as far as, like, how to filter through the details that aren't important, and how to identify the ones that are, and how to quickly talk and navigate through it. So A, thank you for the compliment, and B, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Senior year, though, yeah, spring of senior year, so you're, like, almost done, right? Hard pivot. What about you? My brain just processed that. It's like, oh, senior. Oh, shit, your graduation's coming up, man. There's an intermediate programming class in Java, so it's something beneficial to watch. This is, This is closer to Java syntax than a lot of things, but it's pretty different. But yeah, the overall logic of coding definitely applies here. And Java's object-oriented, right? Because this is also object-oriented coding. That's like the big thing, is like, are you object-oriented, are you not, are you, doing everything off of a server? I think it's object-oriented. I don't do like anything in Java, but I know it's similar to C++, which this is also similar to. They're just in different directions. And that's all object-oriented based, so I'm pretty sure Java's object-oriented. Watch somebody who actually knows coding being like, literally everything you said is just wrong. And be like, well, okay. You use JCreative, you ever heard of it? I have heard of it. I've never used it before. Okay, so I just put in the casting code, which is great. Or the cast range code. So then, the other thing I need to rip off from this is how it creates the object. And then I can figure out the rest from there, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so rather than creating the Starbolt object, I want it to create the Comet object, which doesn't exist right now. I know. It's going to freak out at me. It's going to tell me, what the hell's that? And it's going to create it at the location that's calculated by the cast range, which is all this calculation stuff, which is totally, totally fine. That's exactly how I want it to be. I just realized a slight change I should make here to make the language clearer is this is increased travel distance. And the reason why I want to make that determination on the Starbolt spell, it's very clear, or whether I say cast range or travel distance, what it means, because it's a projectile-based spell. Because Comet sends down a spell at a certain location and then sends out a bunch of projectiles, the increased range implies that you can cast the Comet farther, which is potentially a mod that I could add in. Further range of Comet object. But what I mean by this is that the icy projectiles that nova out of it travel further. So increased travel distance is clearer on Comet, and I want to keep the terminology the same. What have I been up to? Starting in an apartment with your friends, eating almost entirely burritos. Yeah, I've moved like 2 or 3 times. I'm still in California. Still in Northern California. But my housing situation's changed a whole bunch of times. By the way, that is a completely accurate description. The roommates I was living with, we just had like 3 crock pots, and we just got a rotation of like beans and meat being made, and we just ate burritos like 2 times a day every day. Honestly, it was wonderful. 10 out of 10. But yeah, no, yeah, currently, I guess, because, God, there's just so much to talk about. I'm just going to gloss over all that. What's going on right now is I'm living with my sister, my brother-in-law, and we're renting an actual house, not an apartment. So, huge upgrade. We got a yard, we got a pool, we're in a much quieter neighborhood. Everything's way better. way better. And that helps with my mentality to be able to actually work on crap like this, because I'm not like in a loud, crappy, awful, small space. I'm now in a space where I can actually think straight. Also, periods are important. But yeah, so, okay, reworded that, which is fine. So, this creates the object at the location. And the object doesn't exist yet, but that's fine. What the object inherits is it inherits the angle and the image angle, which it doesn't actually need. I don't care about that. And I'm not even going to care about it for the projectiles. They're going to spawn at set angles. Technically, I could have a slight rotation to it, but I'll make a note of it. Can add rotation angle if it matters. So basically, if you fire it above you, right, you kind of would expect things to go out at cardinals, but if you angle it, you kind of would expect the projectile angles to kind of rotate with it. but it also kind of doesn't matter either way. So, well, mostly like odd job stuff. I'm sure you and I have talked about this before. That I used to work a whole bunch of construction, and I've done coding, and I've done like I was in the Air Force for a small time, and all this stuff. So I just have a lot of random skills, and so I mostly try to use those where I can. Don't know if that really was an answer, but that's what I'm going to say on that. I'm also currently doing a lot of the housework, the cleaning, repairs, helping maintain stuff like the cars and whatnot. Because of my previous skill sets. And of course, I get money from Twitch subscriptions. Top right, by the way. Honestly, highly recommend it. I'm not big on cars. I've just started learning about them. I think knowing a lot about cars is literally an invaluable skill set. Holy crap, is it amazing. Everybody I know that really knows what they're doing with cars is doing fantastically, and just like the layer of security and stability it adds to your life of when you know a lot about cars, it's so much easier for you to maintain your own car, and having a car is so huge that it's like, that is a very practical skill set to have. On top of the fact that a lot of the people I know that know a lot about cars make quite a bit of money just working on cars, and they love doing it. Now, that's not always the case, but in general, it definitely highly recommend. If you have any interest in car stuff, get into that. Speaking of which, I need to get new tires on my car right now. They're way too old. Okay, yeah, so I don't really need the angle, since for the most part I think it doesn't really matter. And the reason why I'm not just going to add in the angle, even though it kind of matters, is that I don't want to add in something that's going to take a whole bunch of extra computations. That doesn't really change how the ability works at all. And it's a fair amount of variable passing and handling all this stuff for mostly a visual effect. Like, it does affect the aiming of it, kind of, but the idea of common is you just slam it into a big pack of enemies. So, like, the angle the projectiles exactly fire out at doesn't really matter. And, in a way, having them always fire at the same angles kind of makes it easier to use, because it's more predictable. So, it's kind of a wash whether it matters or not. It's less impact on the game for me to not do it, and it's easier for me to logic through to not do it. So, that's why I'm just making a note that I can put this in if for some reason it's like actually because of something else that I add in later, or just playing with the ability, perhaps it'll feel kind of off. I can go back and add it in. Messing out with my car, fixing dumb shit, I'm thinking about doing smaller maintenance jobs for people to make more money on the side. Going out of rubber joint isn't exactly my idea of decent money. I agree, and oftentimes stuff like car stuff, it's very hard to get consistent work, but it oftentimes pays so much more that it's like, it's not perfect. Like, having a consistent paycheck job definitely is huge and awesome, and like definitely not underrated by any sense of the word. But you know, like, if you're going to school or whatever, being able to just like, oh, I'm just gonna work, you know, every weekend or every other weekend, or one weekday and every other weekend doing car stuff or whatever, and that gives me enough money to keep me going and I can focus on school or whatever. Like, that's just huge. That's huge to be able to have that kind of flexibility. And usually, those kinds of more off jobs like mechanic stuff pays more hourly, so you can get away with working less often. But it all kind of depends on where you live and what the demands are and all that, so it's, you know, it's hard to say for sure, but it basically, if you want to get into it, that should be the kind of model that you're looking for, as far as like, okay, if you're going to be a mechanic, don't expect to get regular mechanic work. Expect to get some mechanic work that pays pretty well, and sort of build around that. If you don't like that idea, then you should probably look somewhere else. Yeah. So that's the thing. Depending on where you're at, you can make a lot more money doing that, and you still work less. It's like, yeah. So it's all a balance. And you can get a formal job at a mechanic shop. It's just, in my experience, it's not the easiest thing to get into. Whereas it's like really easy to work for a burger joint or whatever. Yeah, brakes are big because people need brakes done a lot. Um, it's always nice if you can do basic diagnostics, so transmission fluid, brake fluid, oil, brakes, fuel pump. If you have the diagnostics computers, that's huge. A lot of them are fairly cheap, like $40-$50 for each like different company, and it lets you read error codes and figure out what's wrong, and that's huge. Because a lot of times it's stupid crap, and normally you would have to take it to like a mechanic shop or a dealer, and he'll be like, "Yeah, $75 to tell you what's wrong." It's like, for $40 I can buy the computer that tells me, and then I can do this for other people. But but yeah, so yeah, no, it's definitely something worth considering. It all depends on how much you like it and if you are okay with that kind of lifestyle. If you don't think that kind of, well, week to week, it kind of depends, and you kind of need to like really aggressively look for, more custom work and stuff like that. Like, if you're not comfortable with that, then obviously don't do it. I'm somebody where in general I prefer consistency, which is funny because I've like rarely had it. I guess it's that I prefer consistency. I don't need it, I just slightly prefer it. So when it's more profitable or easier or more convenient for me to have an inconsistent schedule, I just do that. But I do prefer, my ideal would be a very consistent 9 to 5 or whatever schedule. Like, that's just, I love the idea of that. The predictability to me and the security and stability is just so important for my mental ability to just, everything's fine, right? I know what to expect, I know what's going to happen, I can plan everything around that, and be confident with all of my decisions. Nice. That's a huge, very, very appealing idea to me. Oh, other people though, I mean, oftentimes if you work or not oftentimes, but a lot of people I know that are successful that do the inconsistent schedule make so much money and have so much flexibility that their life is just awesome. And it's like, yeah, I see the appeal. Okay, so I do still want to pass in all of these things. This damage needs to be different though. Oh shit! That's why. Okay. I messed this up on this code. I'm glad I caught that. So if we go to here, Starbolt, this should be the damage mod, shouldn't it? What? Multiply it by skill data 2, 0. 2, 0. God damn it. This is ability 11. That would be why. So then for Comet, this should be ability 12. And that's the damage mod. Which is 0.5. Okay. Fixed all of that code. I know why that was screwed up before. We fixed it. We can move on. That's awesome. So the damage is correct. It's going to pass in the duration, the AoE, and the pierce. The other mod I get is cost reduction, which in theory isn't necessary on this ability, but it's still nice, so I will leave it. But I should probably... I could swap this one out. This one isn't super crucial to this ability. So I could swap this out, for example, the cast range of the first big comet projectile. I think that makes a lot of sense. But for now, I'll leave it in because it all just works. So why would I delete a mod that works and also matters for this ability? Okay, so Those are the 4 mods. Mana cost is just has the adjustment. The cooldown needs to be way bigger. What do I have for this Meteor's cooldown? 60. I don't want this to be quite 60, but let's make it like 40. I think 40 makes sense. And what's Meteor's cast? Things. The stop move is also 60. I suppose that makes sense, yeah. Why does... Oh, okay. Yes! Okay, so this should be... No, this should be the same thing. How did it... Why is this... Oh, okay. Okay. I got it. I know it's... Okay. This is the actual cast speed, which 60 is fine. This is the cooldown, which Meteor's cooldown is base 200. Which is like, what, 3 seconds plus? Do I want this to be more spammable or not? Let's make this like 120, so there's a cooldown of 2 seconds. So it's not crazy spammable, but it can be. And then that's another mod that in theory I could add in, which is a reduced cooldown. Because again, I like the idea of the ice caster casting faster spells. So slightly less damage, but faster. Because the idea behind the flavor behind the caster is that mechanically I want this kind of caster to be like the high regen caster, so it makes sense to have cheaper, faster casting spells. So sort of hedging my bets that way, where the witch is more like really big impact slow spells. So I'm trying to keep the theming there. Now, am I going to put this mod in right now? No. But that is an idea for a mod that I could put in that would fit that style. Yeah, this makes sense to get a reduced cooldown. And Meteor does too, so I do have it, but maybe have it be significantly more powerful mod on this one, right? The Meteor cooldown gets reduced by a little bit, where the Comet cooldown gets reduced by a lot, and the Comet cooldown's already lower, so you really feel that you can use the ability much more often, and really try to fill the screen with projectiles. So this passes in damage, it passes in duration, AoE, and pierce, which are just the 3 binary toggles. Because the other toggle is the cost. So now I need to create the Comet object and have that do the other crap that I need it to do. So let's copy the Meteor object, even though, nah, that's pretty bad. I should just create a whole new object for this one. Obj Comet. And this should fix that error up in the code, because now the object exists. Obj Comet. And let's do a new sprite. I'm going to go ahead and actually kind of make this an actual sprite. Let's go width of 24, height of like 80. Okay, cool. And let's go ahead and just do something like this. Let's grid it. And let's grid it based on 10s, I guess. Well, the width, actually, I can just do a 4x4 grid, and it'll be perfect. Yeah. Actually, let's do it with straight. We want that one and that one to be kind of color consistent. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and do this better, because the trails I can add in after the fact. I'm doing this all with animation as like a trick. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are several other ways I could do it, and some of them are probably better. But I'm doing it this way because it's quick, it's simple, and it doesn't really matter at this stage of the game. So doing it this way is pretty convenient. Yo! Oh, beautiful. Sister coming in with food. Always good. And now I'm feeling lazy already, because I have to do like a million more of these. I'll just do it and not put the trails in for now, so we get the functionality going. This is a, looks like it's a cold kind of Saudi thing. Nice. Quinoa? I think it's quinoa. Oh. Hell yeah. Produce quinoa. Sounds like a bit of a vinaigrette. Yeah. I'm just going to be really lazy, and I'll go ahead and speed this up. I can come in later and make this more. 1, 2, 3. But I'm just going to, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, whoops. I'm very bad. Okay. Like, ideally, I think I would probably make this so that I would probably make it so that it was an actual projectile that moved down towards the ground. But again, I can sort of cheat it with animation and move on with my life. Yeah, so let's do that. Yeah, it starts off slow because it's just how I did this, but that's fine. Okay, so this is going to be the animation of the initial hitbox. How many frames do I have? 20 frames. It's kind of a bad way to do it, but whatever. I can tweak all this stuff later. So on this object, I will probably need a create event for variable initialization. I'm going to deal with that in a second. Actually, I'll deal with that right now. So let's go to Meteor's pretty similar. So let's go to this one's create event and just copy all of these for the initialization. At some point, I am going to want to script this stuff out, but I'm going to be adding in more and messing with it and stuff, so I'll do that another time. I should try some of this so I can get my thoughts on it. Oh, yeah. It's like onion, balsamic vinegar, quinoa, peas, some kind of leafy green. I think it's spinach. It's super hot today, so this is like perfect food. Something nice and cold, something a little bit tangy. It goes well with my juice, which I'm almost out of, sadly. I got coffee here though. I'll probably make it like a iced mocha or something. I have like almost a full cup of coffee, so I'll probably take a few swigs, milk, ice. I guess it's an iced latte technically, but whatever. Okay, so what am I doing with this? This needs to have... So this has duration, which I think technically gets passed in here. It does. I don't want this to. No, that's fine. I'll just have to do this slightly differently, which is totally fine. So I'm gonna add in a variable now, called travel. I'm gonna put this equal to 20 because it has 20 frames of animation, and this will be changed when animation is expanded. So if this is then I'm gonna put in at the bottom. Technically, we have counters. Here we would have if travel is greater than 0, then travel minus equals 1. If travel is equal to 0, then what I want you to do is a whole bunch of crap. So this is where I need to make it actually do the code. So I want to create a for loop that's 12 big, var I equals 0, and then I is less than 12, I plus plus. And what I need to do now is I need to have instance create layer. X and Y are totally fine. The layer ID needs to be instances, I believe, is where this is all happening. And the object is obj starbolt. So this is where I need to pass in all the correct values into starbolt. And the easy way that I can do this is I can go to the starbolt ability. And normally, so here's where I create the starbolt ability. This is all the crap that I pass in. So I'm just going to copy this, put it in here, so I know that this is all the stuff I have to define for the object to work the way that it does on the other ability. Pretty easy. So what's different here is the angle is going to be totally different. Otherwise, we have the damage is this is imported, cold damage. The duration is equal to duration, AoE is equal to AoE, and pierce is equal to pierce. Yeah. So right now this won't do single target damage. I can technically add in single target damage for the impact zone. But need to do animation and all that differently. And it's not really the point of the ability, so I'm fine doing this. Because the things are going to be able to like overlap and stuff, if there's something right at the target zone, it's basically just going to fucking die. So I don't really need this to also do some damage, but I probably will do that. That could also, in theory, be like a mod that I put in too, is like some impact AoE slash Nova effect as well. Like, I can really go nuts on this ability if I really wanted to. So I just need to do these angles differently. So these angles need to be based on the I value. This is in radians, so a 1/12 of a circle I should know this. That's an hour, which is what, 30 degrees? Or is it 15? 30 times 12 is 360. Yeah, so it's 30 degrees. 30 degrees in radians, though, is a different number. Well, let me do the degree calculation because it's easy. This is I times 30. For radians, I can make it do the math, but it's kind of a bad way to do it, because the less calculations I can make this do, the better it is. So it would be what? 2 pi is an entire circle in radians. So it would be pi over 6. I times pi over 6, I believe is what it is in radians. The reason why I need both is all the trig calculations are done in radians, so I need to do this to determine the velocity and all this stuff. All of the sprites are handled in degrees in GML, which is really annoying. I think it's fine that trig uses radians, but then I would argue that then the sprite should use radians as well. But whatever, it's fine. I'll just, do the conversions every time. I think this will work. It'll even work with the mods. It does the mana right. It has the cooldown. Alright, so let's see. This should be the next ability. So, this is just item ID 12, which is why I made this cheated in debug item. Oh, there's bell pepper in this? Oh, that makes it so much better. I didn't even notice. I was just thinking some bell pepper would be great in this, and there it is. It's fine. There shouldn't be any image for this. Oh, I can't cast it because I don't have any gear on. Right. Because you have to have a weapon equipped in order to use abilities. It broke. Why? Ah, okay. So that is a mod. This is a mod that Meteor uses that this thing doesn't. So this is all that I have to do. That makes sense. We're still good. That wasn't a major bug. That was just because I copied over the code from Meteor. Okay. Oh, right, again. No item. I should really start as the scribe, because the scribe starts with items equipped, so... Okay. So it's not getting angle, even though it should. It looked like it kind of tried to work, though. What? Wait a minute. This looks very wrong. Yeah. Whoops.
Not sure what's up with that, but fixed? And this, yeah, accurately represents the cast range. Starbolt Pierce was not set. Is it not initialized? Huh. Not sure why that wasn't coming up when I was using the ability on its own, but apparently... Yeah, because that's where I initialize AoE. Okay. Well, it's kind of working. Okay. So first things first, I know what's wrong with this. First off, let's go SPR Comet. And this needs to have a bottom center origin. This I should call SPR Star Cone. So now, if we go to OBJ Comet, Comet. Yeah, we have an image speed of 0. Let's fix that. And an image index of 0. That's fine. I don't need it, but that's fine. Then, for some reason, these weren't moving. It's angle times projectile speed. Happens on this object. Oh. As well as instance destroy. So. Duration equals the temp variable duration, which is determined here, which is 30. This is 30. Huh. Not sure why they weren't moving. This should have fixed some of the issues, though. Let's see. Okay. Cosine of angle, sine of angle, times projectile speed. angle equals I times 5 over 6. I have a feeling I did that wrong. That's probably the problem. The image angle looks great. Radian circle. Degree/radian circle. Perfect. Pull it up. Yes, internet. Take forever to load it, please. I very much so want you to do this. Yeah, pi over 6. Oh, yeah, because that's in 30 over 60. What happens is we pass that in. Creates the objects and then passes it in, so that should be fine. It should pass in that duration. I mean, I guarantee this is going to be wrong, because that needs to be in radians, because it's plugged into a trig function. I picked the wrong one because I need to cool. Sword. Yeah. I know this is supposed to be pi over 6. I have a feeling the duration is what's getting screwed up. I don't think that initialization should make a difference of the duration variable. If anything, my code will break now, which is why I initialized it. And yes, I need to draw that sprite. I should do that soon. Yeah. It's trying to work. Comet objects being handled properly. It's creating all the projectiles, but they're not existing for very long. Yeah. Which is why I have to initialize it. Yeah, with parent enemy. So parent hitbox. Enemy current wall. Version 0. What if this is way higher than it's supposed to be? Okay, let's see. How does angle normally get handled here? This is angle plus pi over 2. Why? I don't think that's the issue, but that's a little weird. That would just rotate them. Every variable that gets moved in, it's within the with statement. Alien duration. This creates the comment. It passes in the AoE pierce duration as well as the damage. The only thing it doesn't get is the angle because it handles those differently. When we get to the comet object, when it hits the end of its travel time, what it does is it creates 12 of these. Each one gets an angle and radians to determine the angle it should travel at, as well as the angle it should be drawn at. I know this code at least is working correctly because they're drawing correctly. Then it inherits cold damage duration, AoE, and pierce. Oh, but these are all temporary variables in the script that they come from. So it knows what they are. I don't have to specify other, which is why I have to specify self. That's like literally exactly what the problem is. And it threw me off because they did designate self, so like... There we go! Look at that! I mean, it's using like no mana when it should use a bunch of mana, so that needs to be fixed, but... And they pierce? No, they don't. But yeah, if the thing's right in the zone, yeah, it just pops them. Because they get shotgunned by a whole bunch of projectiles. The ability works, though, exactly how I want it to. So that's nice. The fact that they go so far is kind of insane. That's like without mods. I think it's because their projectile speed is pretty high. So I think I need to change that on both abilities. Because that's an unmodded comet. And I think the reason why it's so crazy is because it moves on both sides of the origin point. So maybe the comet should just be halved. Because, like, effectively it has double range. This is the fully modded one, which will be, like, insane, as you will see when I try to hit a pack with it. Yeah. Yeah, so it goes, like, across the whole screen, the projectiles. That's a little too good. The AoEs overlap properly. Yeah, that works. It works the way that I want it to. You can see all the overlapping AoEs trigger. So the reason why there's multiple AoEs coming off the same enemy is because multiple projectiles are hitting that enemy. So that's kind of fine. Like I'm completely fine with this. Yeah. So that ability works exactly how I want it to. outside of some balancing stuff. So, let me go ahead and copy this and make another one. And let's make this one Starbolt. Because I want to see if the range is actually the same, because that's a little bit, like, that feels wrong, and then again, the mana cost is off. So let's do this. And we have that one, and we have Comet. So if I just fire towards the fire... Oh, right, it actually can collide with the fire. So here, it's going, like, just towards the fire. So if I Nova on... Or if I Comet on myself, I go about that distance too. The reason why it looks so insane is because it goes that distance forward and backwards. So it's almost the entire screen. And I do want Starbolt to shoot pretty far. So I think I'm just going to half the range on Comet, rather than having the range on both. Which that's really easy to do. What I do is I go to the duration, which this is what the... This is how long the projectiles stay out, and I just half the values here. Then, why is the mana cost so off? Because it's looking at the wrong place. Starbolts is probably looking at the wrong place too. Yeah. Okay. Cool. That explains it a bit, because Starbolt felt a little more mana heavy than I meant it to be. Starbolt and Comet. That feels much more like how I want a Starbolt to feel on its own. And that looks correct to me for what Comet should look like. Because when you mod it, it doubles. So now it'll be... When it's fully upgraded, it'll be what it was before I made that change. That looks and feels correct, if you ask me. Beautiful. Okay, so I like both those abilities. I need to add in the sprite for Comet in the inventory, which is here. Need to add in another one. This blank one. Add this in here. Okay. Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. You just do something like oh, you know what? Good enough. That looks kind of like crap, but good enough, good enough. So those two abilities are both now in the game. They have their text, they have their mechanics, they have their mods. Nice. These both work. So, next ability. So here's where I don't have any solid ideas. So I want to have some kind of shatter ability. Maybe I make it just a freeze ability. So, I kind of like the idea of it being something like, it freezes them into a solid block. So, like, it's like guaranteed freeze chance with, like, a high cooldown or something. Then, if you kill the enemy, they explode. Potentially into more star bolts to continue up with the synergy. And because I can give it a pretty good cooldown, it makes it so it's not something that's like just broken, where you like freeze like a whole pack of enemies around a boss and then just blow them all up. So I like the idea of doing something like that. That's a very different ability though, and much harder to do. Damn, I think I'll put a pin in that ability for now. Because it's already 8:30. And I started the stream late, so I'm fine going a little bit longer, but I shouldn't go crazy longer. So I'm gonna switch to polishing and sort of fixing stuff mode. And then I'll sort of wrap stuff up. So let's take a look at my big list as far as stuff that needs to be polished goes, and see what I can do. Okay. I can add in the mana check on targeting. This side. Finished all that? Yeah. I don't know what was that. That was me mapping out a different system. Okay. Yeah, so let's start with that. My targeting script, which is really good, doesn't check for mana, which is the only problem with it right now. So let's go to this. So this, in fact, does know the equipment in the equipment slot, so I can check mana cost. So how do I check mana cost here? I don't. I check it in the script execute. So how do I check mana cost here? Calculate mana cost, which is really annoying, but doable. This is, in fact, doable. It depends, though, because things have reduced mana cost. I think I'm not going to do that. I think I'm going to handle it differently, because I think that's the better way to handle it. You're going to catch up on some sleep, man? Sounds good? Yeah? I stream Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So every day of the week except for Wednesdays. My schedule's down below. And yeah, I'm sure I'll see you around. I'm pretty much done with the stream anyways. I'm just saying if there's anything quick I can knock out. Anything that won't take me, 45 minutes, which is probably what coming up with that whole new ability will do, because it's a new debuff I would have to put in, a whole bunch of triggered effects. Yeah. So yeah, how I think I'm going to do targeting instead now, because I think it's way too difficult for me to figure out the mana cost stuff without me reworking my mana cost system. Which, although I may do later, not going to do that right now. As in, not just tonight, but in general, I'm fine not touching my mana system for this first alpha build. So, what I could do instead, because the problem I have with the target system is, when you try to cast the ability, you can see the target and you let go, and there's no feedback as to why it didn't cast. So in theory, I should add in some text that tells you why the thing didn't cast. So I should probably make a temporary text object, because it'd be useful for many things. Okay. I will go ahead and handle that, because although it is technically a new system, it's a pretty quick and simple one. OBJ floating text. That's all I'm going to call it, because I can make it very generic and very, very versatile. Create duration. Let's define this as, I want it to last like a second and a half, so let's say 90. My game runs at 60 FPS, so this, and I need text equals blank. Then what we have is at the step event, in the draw event, draw set font, I just call it font 1. Draw set, probably color, probably white will look best, because white will have more contrast with things than probably anything else. When I get fancier fonts, this will change, but yeah. Yellow's in general a pretty good one too, but then we have draw text x, y, and this will be text, the variable, which right now is nothing, so it'll draw nothing. Then we have if duration is greater than 0, then duration minus equals 1, and then if duration is equal to 0, instance destroy. And then I'll go ahead and write self, but it defaults to self. We have a floating text object. Nailed it. So now I can use this in anywhere where I want there to be a temporary text prompt. So for example, if on your skill, this checks if you have the proper mana cost stuff, I have a return 0. So I can go to this, I can add in, oh yeah, so this is already checking if it returns a 1. So if it returns a 0, I can say else. With instance create layer, let's do x minus 5 and y minus 10, and it'll create object floating text. Oh, sorry. OBJ floating text. I skipped the layer, my B. And this is on layer, instances. Instances. And what I do is I set text equal to not enough mana / stamina. I can add in a further check for this later, but yeah. Oh, right, yeah. Both these abilities are here. Yeah, so let me just, do this until it fails. Yeah. There you go. Probably lasts a little bit longer than it needs to. So now you have that needed feedback, so I don't need to add a mana cost check or anything to the targeting system. It's already clear why you couldn't cast the ability. And And now this is something, this very simple code here, I can put this anytime anything fails or succeeds and I want there to be a prompt. Super easy. Super, super easy. Actually, I can make it even better, and I will do so. So let's first off make it a little bit less. Secondly, let's do draw set alpha. I'm putting in my safety code so I don't actually screw up everything past this. This should be equal to 1 times 1 times duration over 60. So it'll have a fade out now, as well as y minus equals 1 on each frame, so it'll move 1 pixel each frame. So that'll move surprisingly quickly. Let's make it 0.5. Oh, okay. So that's where it gets screwed up. It sets the... Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a problem. Okay, where I need to put this isn't here. I need to put it after it draws the text. This is exactly why I put this in, was to avoid exactly what happened there, where it affects everything else that runs after it in the draw step for the entire application, but that should fix it, because right after it draws the text, it should go back. I don't have enough mana to cast this ability, but look at that. Oh! Oh! That looks so good! Yeah. And you can use this on all kinds of fancy things. Oh. I don't want to draw it on top of me as much as it does, so I need it to go up a bit. Let's go to use skill. Use skill. Let's draw it up like another 20 pixels. Minus should be up, right? Yes, it is. Absolutely. And let's put it to the left a bit more, too. For good measure. So why does this now have, an insane cost? Oh, it's not. It's failing for a different reason. So we're fine. What's happening is, this is still failing, but it's not for mana, it's because that character didn't have a weapon on. So, I should move this to each of those locations instead, which is a little annoying, because they would have to do it for every single one. No. I can put this back. I just need to put in better returns. So this is a return 0 if this fails. This returns 1 if that succeeds. But this can fail otherwise, right? Yes. This returns a 0. I don't want this to return a 0. I want this to return a 2. Then, here we can go, if this is true, so let's put if this is... Okay. var success state. Uh-oh. I didn't mean to copy over it. Okay. Var. And I guess failure state's a bit easier, or fail. Just because I know what that means. And then I can put if fail equals 1. So if it succeeds, then we do this. Here we put if fail equals 0. Not enough mana. If fail equals 2, then we run technically the same thing, except the text is different. Which is instead of not enough mana, we put no weapon equipped. Oh, well, actually I can still test this by taking off my weapon. That's my skill. There we go. Uh-oh. It's still coming back with the same failure. It's still coming back with a 0. But that isn't why this is failing. Oh, because I didn't replace this on every single one like I was supposed to. Because it is still returning 0 on all of these. Where's the weapon check for this? I don't have a weapon check for this because this doesn't need a weapon check. Makes sense. This does. The reason why the enchant weapon buff doesn't need a weapon check is because if you don't have a weapon equipped, it just doesn't do anything. Or like you can't cast abilities that it would affect anyways, so it doesn't matter. Hex also doesn't have any sort of weapon requirements. Some of these will definitely change, but for now I don't have the robust weapon system in place yet. So these are really simple checks. I can have these return very specific values according to their checks, and then have it write very specific text results because of that. Oh, was that for me? Oh, okay, cool. Yep. So now that should work. There's something else I wanted to change though, real quick before I tested. Was there? Maybe not. Yeah. We'll just see what this looks like now. So I can use this for damage, for crits, for picking up stuff, for whatever the heck I want. This code's very, very generic. Yep. Oh, that's what I wanted to change. I wanted to change what it literally said. Because this actually isn't all that good, which is equip correct weapon. That's more generic, because stuff like enchant shield you can't use unless you have a shield equipped. So equip a weapon isn't quite right, but equip correct weapon is a little bit clearer. It's still a little bit unclear for shield, but I can add much more precise stuff later when I expand the system. Then I want to go to money. Do all this as well as with instance. Oh, let me just copy the code, or can I just paste? Damn. Wasn't sure if it was still on the clipboard. Let's go ahead and copy this. Then let's go to money. Let's paste this in. This doesn't need to be drawn nearly as high. And the text should be equal to string money. And let's do plus with a space. Beautiful. And shouldn't matter. But apparently I missed the semicolons up here. So let's go ahead and put those in, just in case it ends up mattering. Similar thing, let's do this. Which is plus +1 scale. Let's put this back to 30 for this item. And then we can go to gear. +1 gear. +1 equipment probably will be better. And then console. Here we go. +5 souls. I can change the code a little bit to be able to account for different colors and stuff like that. Not a big deal for now. Like I can have a variable that's color and then have it set the draw color on the object to the color that it was, and reset back to black at the bottom or white or whatever. But yeah, and until I have fancy fonts and all that stuff, it's really not important. This is a bad character to play as, but give me a sword. Give me a shield too, because shields are really broken at this current build of the game. Oh, and I need to change the shield text. I should write that down. Shield text is wrong. Yeah. So they don't do a whole lot of damage, but they're not supposed to. Something broke. Floating text money not set? Fair enough. Other dot money. Just fair. Okay, with this, I think we're basically gonna wrap up. After this, I'm gonna fix the shield description and probably wrap up the stream, because we're approaching 9 o'clock, which is a great time for me to end stuff. Let's go ahead and play with the new abilities. So I'm just going to go ahead and do like a full test playthrough to show off the current state of the game, as well as to maybe find some other bugs and stuff. Then I'll replace that description and probably in there, unless there's a couple quick things I discover while I'm doing this. Alright. And I can try out the new abilities while I'm at it. That text needs to be changed. I'm going to wait till I redo my entire quest system for that, because I'm going to add 4 or 5 more quests into this build. Yeah, Comet's not great. It's not really worth the mana. Until I upgrade it a little bit. Okay, something else broke. What? How does it not know what other .money is? If it collides with the player, Oh, because it's not by money, it's by amount. Fair enough. And it knows what amount is as the native object, so it should inherit it. Because this isn't on a with statement. Okay. Yeah, we have a save load system. Oh, glad I checked that. First row saves are off. Off by a lot. I kind of have an idea why that happened. But yeah, we have no saves right now. New game. Start as this person. Overall, on one hand, I'm really happy with the work that I got done this coding session. But on the other hand, I kind of wanted to get more done. It's not the end of the world that I didn't, but it would have been nice to get more done. Hey, yeah, so the money came in. It looked a little weird. The text looked like it overlapped weird, but I think it also picked up souls while I was at it. I'm going to try to group up as much as I can, and then... Yeah, fair enough. It's bad until they get Pierce. How did that get messed up? What is that dropped? That's something that has an image... that's an item that has an image speed that shouldn't. That's weird. The famous error. However, this error came up not on the code where I fixed it. So that's a good sign. I'm going to make note of this, and I'm not going to handle this tonight. This has been a persistent bug that mathematically makes no sense whatsoever. It literally breaks algebra in order for this error to even come up in the first place. But I think it's just lying to me, and I think I know what's actually happening, and I think what we tried to do to fix it last week actually worked, because it's only happened on everything that doesn't have the fixed code written on it. So that's pretty good evidence that we fixed it. Unfortunately, this is such a rare error, and I don't know how to replicate it, because I don't know what's going on, because it shouldn't even be possible in the first place, that it's hard to confirm that my fix actually fixed it. It could just be RNG. Could just not have run into the circumstance where this bug happens. But I'll make note that square root error on skill pickup. And it's weird that I waited until I hit respawn, so it's probably because... Yeah, I have no idea, actually. That's just weird. Because the character was already deleted by that point, so... That's weird. That's super weird. It's fine, though. I will actually get through a full test playthrough, I swear. So I'm just going to actually play as the scribe and not use the new abilities, because they're not that great until they're upgraded. So this guy drops Nova runes. He's got like a magic sword attack. He's supposed to be kind of like a spell sword. He's got a couple buffs. I used the magic weapon buff because it makes me deal more damage. I didn't trigger the quest. Womp womp. I'm just gonna go back and get the quest going. This is the first quest. That's not what he gives you for this quest reward. Again, I'm gonna rewrite all the quest text when I add in the extra quests, which I will do after I finish all the skills, which I got 2 done today, which is kind of depressing. I wanted to get a lot more done than 2, but it's fine. I made progress, did some problem solving. have a pretty good idea of where I want to go with a lot of the ability design, so there's nothing wrong with that. Let's go ahead and use a potion. So these souls here, every time you kill an enemy, you get a soul, which fills up this orb. And those items have a chance to drop, which give you 5 souls, and it takes 20 souls to use a potion. So it's kind of like PoE's flask system, except they all pull from the same pool, so you can like overfill or whatever. The point of it is that it's supposed to be a potion system that isn't annoying as crap, but also feels very, very accessible, like you do have a fair amount of potions. These guys kind of get stuck on each other now. It's because I'm pretty sure their hitboxes rotate into each other by like half a pixel, which is a little bit annoying. But I'm changing the entire art direction how hitboxes work once I get somebody involved for art, so I'm not going to worry about weird, subtle stuff like that. I can change the equipment text to, like, say the name of the item that got picked up. I can expand it, like, to be much more specific and much further. Not going to worry about it right now. I'll probably have it reference the base type of item, so like sword, helm, armor, shield, whatever. And then I'll probably also reference the rarity of it. Did you pick up a common, uncommon, rare, whatever? Because I think that would be nice to see at a glance, as in if you keep picking up a bunch of white gear, you can kind of just not really look at it. If you pick up something that's purple, that's like a big rarity. I can also have it increase the text size as well, so it's really obvious when something that good drops. So very, very flexible how I set up the floating text system. As you can tell by how quickly I implemented it, I've used similar floating text systems in games in the past, and so it was very quick for me to put in, and I've worked with it before, so I know just how powerful and flexible it is. Okay, cool. First quest is done. The first quest is... so this turns on your perks. Again, the text is wrong. So now I have 1 perk slot, and these are the perks that I have available. Ooh, these don't have perk text yet. Did I write that down somewhere? I don't think I did. Let me put that into here. Perk info text. But basically this one is the summoner passive, or the summoner perk. It gives you more maximum mana, but at the cost of mana regen. So since I'm a caster, I don't really want that. This one is the opposite. You have less max mana, but more regen, so this would be good for like the ice caster that I designed some abilities for starting out. By the way, the reason why these are showing up is because they're on the top layer, because they're debug items. These won't actually show up. This gets rid of mana regen, but gives you some mana leech. What is this one? Oh, this is less mana regen and cheaper spells. Or less maximum mana and cheaper spells. So this works if this works well if you already have like high regen or sources of mana leech. It's basically just a net positive, but not cleanly. So it's an interesting sort of math thing you have to figure out. And then these are effectively the same things, but for stamina. So I would probably want the... I don't think I'd want any of these technically on this guy. In theory, because this guy's a spell sword, I would want the summoner perk. But I don't have enough base mana regen for it to work. I suppose I could go ahead and use my debug money to upgrade all my gear and stuff and sort of fix that. Are any of these helms good as a base? That's pretty good. I would want to get like exactly max mana on this, but let's see. Mana Regen's good enough to try to roll max mana onto. Damn. Oh. No, max mana. Ideally, every piece of gear I would get would roll max mana and regen, but max mana is the more important thing for a spell sword. Let's go ahead and focus on the armor. Yep, perfect. Regen and max armor. Or regen and max mana. Mana regen. No. Yeah, I've already checked. I've already rolled my leggings. Cold damage is nice, but no mana regen or max mana. Nope. Nope. I guess yes, I will look at shields now. Damn. So, as you can see what I'm doing here, this is the blacksmith who can add mods to gear, and I'm probably spamming through it a bit too fast, but each upgrade, this is the price. When I redo my text and stuff, it'll be much, much, much clearer. So each time you add a mod to it, they cap it 4, it gets exponentially more expensive. The idea being that 4 modded gear is supposed to be very rare and very endgame stuff. Now, obviously, I have a stupid amount of money because I'm testing stuff. The idea with this is, like, you're supposed to mostly try to get your endgame gear through drops, because it's an ARPG. But the idea is, if you just can't, you have an out. You have a way to get, you can buy from blacksmith or whatever a normal piece of gear. What am I looking for on swords, actually? I guess it would just be as much increased cold damage as I can get. Added cold, mana leech, increased fizz. That's all good. Yeah, let's just do that and stop rolling swords. Max mana, perfect, good. Okay, so let's go ahead and sell all this stuff. I don't think, yeah. I'm using some of the convenient button things that I've put in. It's just, I put in a lot of shift click and control click functionality and all that stuff. What do I care about? I care about boots and gloves. And I'm just looking for max mana. Beautiful. Did that also get regen? Yeah, that did. And move speed? Perfect. It's like actually almost perfect boots. Almost perfect boots. Oh, I want gloves with that mana regen. Potentially good. Max mana? Damn. There's like no way those gloves are going to be good. Mana regen. Cool. Whatever, I don't care. These both had regen, which one's better? I think that one's slightly better. Now I can just shift click to sell these all. Actually, I can probably, yeah, bulk sell some of those. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay. So now let's go to the enchanter. Skills in this work the same way, where your skills, you have 6 equipment slots for your skills, which are... Oh, I guess I turned off the text. Ooh, that's kind of broken. I guess I should make note of that. Key binding text is apparently broken. Binding text broken. But yeah, so there's left click, right click, 1, 2, 3, 4. So skills work effectively the same way. They have their own inventory just to keep stuff organized, but you have your base skill and you have mods. The difference with skill mods is rather than giving you passive buffs, they affect the ability itself to add mechanics to it. So this is like, getting synergies or like expanding abilities or whatever in various games. Pathfinder will be kind of like adding on support gems to it. They're all just native to the skill itself. And so effectively it's turning skills into a form of atomization in this. So now that I've maxed my character, and we have an insane amount of max mana, which is good. Oh, what? Why do I have 0 stamina? So apparently one of the stamina ones is bugged. Stamina passive is bugged. Okay, so fortunately I don't need stamina on this character, but I'm going to go ahead and turn on my enchant sword. What? That should work just fine. Okay, yeah, enchant sword works on it, but I can't turn on my shield? But I'm wearing a shield. Oh, whoops, I'm bad. Uh-oh. So that's also broken now for some reason. But yeah, so how this character works now. So these runes, normally you draw them at your feet, as you saw earlier, but one of the mods lets you cast at a distance. And for some reason, the casting doesn't work. The targeting doesn't work on this. Oh, yes, because it shouldn't. And then they also have chain reaction right now. I should probably turn off my sword mod so I actually have a good amount of mana. So if one hits another, it blows up. And this isn't 100% mana anymore. Okay, yeah. Okay, so my character's a little bit too bugged to play, but the Nova runes can chain reaction if their explosions hit each other. My basic attack can also trigger them because of mods. I do a butt ton of cold damage. The shield adds a whole bunch of defenses as well as makes my shield better, obviously. And the attack buff converts some of the stamina cost of a regular attack to mana. So the whole point is this is supposed to be a spell sword. So this allows you to have some access to some attacks that normally casters wouldn't be able to use if you use this ability, because it makes half of their stamina cost mana instead. As well as gives you some good offensive buffs. And what's nice about this is this makes it not necessarily good for regular fighters, because the converting half of the stamina to mana cost isn't necessarily a good thing. So not only do you need enough mana to reserve the ability, but then it converts some of the stamina cost to mana. So you need to have a good amount of mana to be able to use this, but then it makes your attack stronger and makes it more accessible if you're a hybrid kind of character, if you're a spell sword. So I really like this ability. This area just spawns stuff just like the other area. Right now I have a very slight amount of infinite scaling in that this guy can turn up the difficulty, which just scales damage and HP. And you can just keep going back and forth, collecting items, selling them, upgrading your gear, upgrading your stuff. Obviously they can drop gear and skills. Yeah. So from here, all I need to do is expand out the quest system, make a few more areas, maybe add in a bit more random elements to the areas, add in a butt ton more skills, a butt ton more gear. Alright, so at this point it's mostly like, that's areas, it's quests, it's gear, it's skills. It's just content at this point. The base mechanics are here. They exist, they're in the game. The base progression systems are in the game. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited to keep cranking away on this. I just found a whole bunch of bugs, but I'll compile it into a list later and do that. I'm not going to do the shield description now. I'm going to wrap up the stream because it's 9 o'clock. On that note, let me go ahead and update this. I added in 2 more complete skills. Beautiful. This is still true. All skills are currently up to date. I should probably do something like that. I didn't implement any bigger systems or anything like that. I put in floating text, but that wasn't on the list. Yeah, so Shadows time. So,
yeah, if you look down below, there's some information down below on my Twitch channel. First is my schedule, which shows that I stream Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. That's every weekday except for Wednesdays, and I stream 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. PDT. On days where I start late, I tend to go later, and oftentimes I stream past 8, but the idea is I will stream at least until 8. I take Wednesdays off as a nice refresher, as a good day off, in case I need to get stuff done during the week. I have a weekday off. Weekends I leave open for streaming with friends or streaming games or whatever. I have no promises that I'm going to stream then, so I leave those completely open. If you want to know if I am going to stream on the weekends or if there's any kind of schedule changes, you can follow my Twitter, which is in the same section. I always try to tweet at least 30 minutes before I go live. Didn't happen today because I lost track of time, but I tend to tweet at least 30 minutes, and if there's any schedule changes or whatever, I will always tweet them out. So that's how you can stay fully up to date on if I'm going to be streaming that day or not. If you want to support this project, I have a Patreon, also down in the description. The Patreon is meant to fund the parts of the game that I cannot work on myself, because I do not have the skills for them. For example, art. This is all placeholder art now. This is pretty much the best I can do. I do not feel that it's a good use of anybody's time or resources for me to do the artwork. So I would love to get somebody involved to do that. I do not have the funds to pay an artist, though, so that's the point of the Patreon, is to raise funds for that. That first goal, all of that money is meant to go to an artist to help out. Potentially there's some other things that I would need to get done too, like sound design and music and things. And that's sort of also wrapped into that. After that, if I happen to meet that goal, the rest goes into funding more time, so that I can work on these projects more. Potentially to expand the team and whatever else beyond that. So your support's much appreciated if you want to support the Patreon there. If you want to support me directly and the stuff that I do on stream, which isn't always coding, feel free to subscribe, and that's to support me and me alone, right? That doesn't go to the project, that doesn't go to funding, that's just for me and my time for my stream and for the content that I put out on the stream. I think that's everything. So, tomorrow's Friday, so I will be streaming again, and I'll be doing more of this, trying to get more abilities in. May do some work between then of just, knocking out some quick bugs and things, but for the most part, I don't intend on adding a whole lot of content in off-stream, because I know that's the exciting stuff to watch. So yeah, I should be streaming again tomorrow, and then this weekend, probably streaming Path of Diablo with friends. We're still figuring that out. So yeah, thanks so much, and let's see who we can raid. It's Thursday night. I don't think too many people are going to be on. Let's see. Maybe, though. I see a couple people streaming right now. Nice. Specifically for game dev stuff. Okay. Looking for somebody else kind of doing the same thing? Pixel arty stuff? Indie stuff? In general, I try to find somebody new, but kind of hard to tell what these people are working on. Alright, let's just go raid this person.